Think about that moment when everything you thought was rock solid just crumbles right before your eyes. You lose your job. A relationship you thought would last forever ends out of the blue. An unexpected illness barges into your life. The ground disappears beneath your feet, and there you are, suspended in this unsettling, bewildering void. Who are you in that instant when everything you knew slips through your fingers? Now, what if I told you that these crises aren't just endings, they're portals, and that you've crossed through these gateways, these bardos, more times than you probably realize? Today, you're about to uncover something truly powerful. The Tibetan Book of the Dead isn't just about dying. It's about living, fiercely, deeply. It's about being reborn, about how you can actually rewrite your story during every transition you go through. The Bardo Thodol, known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, lays out in vivid detail the stages. Consciousness passes through between death and rebirth, but more than that, it shows us something profound. Those bardos are the very same painful, life-altering transitions you face every single day. And the way you move through them, it shapes who you ultimately become. The word bardo might sound a little strange or far off at first, but it actually describes something deeply familiar. It literally means between two. It's that in-between space, that threshold separating an ending from a beginning that hasn't quite arrived yet. It's not just about the gap between life and death. It's about any meaningful pause between the end of one chapter and the start of another. Think about some of the major changes you've been through. An unexpected divorce, a sudden layoff, a complete career pivot, or even that deep, unsettling feeling of not recognizing yourself in the mirror anymore. These are everyday bardos. They're those hazy periods when the old version of you fades away, but the new one hasn't fully come into focus yet. You've probably felt that unsettling sense before, that empty feeling when you close a door for the last time, the pounding heart when you're staring down the unknown, the sense of being totally lost in some strange emotional wilderness. That's what we mean when we talk about a bardo, those existential free falls that leave you suspended between who you were and who you're about to become. But what if we started looking at these moments not as failures or breakdowns, but as deep invitations to grow? What if every loss, every shock, every life shake-up was actually a cleverly disguised opportunity, nudging you to break free from old limits? Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, picked up on something pretty similar. In his theories about archetypes and rites of passage, he believed that during major life transitions, specific archetypes, universal symbolic images, get activated within our psyche, bringing hidden parts of ourselves to the surface, just like the Tibetan Bardo Thodol describes encounters with symbolic figures, dazzling lights, peaceful deities, terrifying demons. Jung saw our personal transitions as revealing powerful, hidden aspects of our own minds. Have you ever felt an unexpected surge of courage right when chaos hit? Or maybe you've come face to face with a paralyzing fear just when you needed to step up. Those intense, surprising emotions, they're living expressions of the archetypes, awakened by your personal bardos. Maybe you've never called your life transitions bardos before, but you've absolutely lived through them. And more importantly, you've felt their raw, transformative power. These transitional moments are like mirrors, showing you parts of yourself that usually stay hidden, waiting patiently for the right moment to rise into the light. Once you start recognizing these bardos in your everyday life, something amazing shifts. You stop seeing crises as just painful or confusing setbacks and start seeing them as doorways, openings to new possibilities. You begin facing them with more clarity and less fear, knowing that each transition holds some deep, hard-earned wisdom. So think about a recent bardo you've gone through, or maybe one you're in the thick of right now. How are you handling it? Are you clinging to the past, hoping everything snaps back to the way it used to be? Or are you willing to let something new take shape inside you? Transitions like these are inevitable. They're woven right into the fabric of being human. But what can change radically is how you move through them. When you understand the true nature of bardos, you don't just survive them, you can actually use them as powerful catalysts for your own transformation. Because in the end, every ending carries the promise of a new beginning. Every bardo holds the seed of a rebirth. Every bardo is unique in its own way, but there are some patterns we can all recognize when it comes to major life transitions. There are 4 essential stages we go through over and over again: the end of a cycle, disorientation, inner transformation, and finally, rebirth, the bardo of endings. Picture the heavy silence that lingers after slamming a door shut, marking the close of a major chapter in your life. Maybe it's that final conversation with someone you once loved deeply. Maybe it's the day you say goodbye to a job that defined a big part of who you were. Or maybe it's the moment you realize you no longer fit in with the group of friends who used to be your whole world. The dominant feeling here is a deep, restless emptiness, a gnawing sense of loss and confusion. It's like you're walking through familiar places, and suddenly the lights go out. The world you knew just vanishes, leaving behind a painful gap that's not easy to fill. In this space, impermanence isn't just a concept, it's something you can almost touch, like a shadow constantly whispering that nothing lasts forever. The bardo of disorientation. Now comes the trickiest part of any transition. You're lost in a thick fog of uncertainty, wandering through unknown territory without a map, without a compass. It's a lot like the Chonyid Bardo described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that stage where intense visions pop up, blurring the lines between hope and fear, pulling your mind in every direction. At this point, it's easy to feel scared, vulnerable, maybe even paralyzed by doubt. You start asking yourself, who am I now? Or, where the hell am I even going? But here's the thing, this phase is a deep invitation to self-discovery. Every moment of confusion holds the seed of a powerful insight about who you really are. Take a second and think, how many times have you been stuck in that messy in-between, only to come out the other side with a whole new clarity about yourself? The bardo of inner transformation. This is when you come face to face with your own shadows. It's like standing in front of a dark mirror that reflects parts of you you'd rather not see. The Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about this phase with the appearance of wrathful deities, frightening figures that represent the inner forces you need to confront and integrate. This is the most powerful and transformative stage of any transition. You might have to deal with old wounds, repetitive patterns, or fears that have been haunting you for years. But when you meet them head-on with courage, you discover a hidden strength you didn't even know you had. Every fear faced, every shadow embraced is a major victory, a huge step toward living a fuller, more authentic life. Looking back, haven't your greatest breakthroughs often come right after the hardest internal battles? The bardo of rebirth. After facing the end, getting lost in disorientation, and wrestling with your deepest shadows, you finally reach the phase of renewal. Here's where you start shaping a new reality, stepping into a version of yourself that holds all the wisdom you've earned. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this stage mirrors the Sidpa Bardo, where consciousness prepares for reincarnation, deeply influenced by the emotional and mental states cultivated in the earlier stages. You've lived through this more than once. It's the moment you finally move past a heartbreak and open your heart again. When you land a new career that actually feels like you. When you rise up from a crisis stronger and more awake than ever before. Every rebirth is a living testimony to your infinite capacity to grow, evolve, and reinvent yourself. But don't forget, rebirth isn't automatic. It demands intention. It demands awareness. How you move through your transitions shapes the life you're stepping into. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what kind of rebirth do you want to create right now? What new version of yourself is ready to emerge? Each of these 4 everyday bardos, ending, disorientation, transformation, and rebirth, is like a miniature cycle of death and life. They're constant invitations to reassess, to learn, to grow. They're powerful reminders of the cyclical nature of existence, teaching us to move through change with a little more wisdom, a little more grace. Transitions are inevitable. You don't get to choose when they come, but you do get to choose how you respond. Every crisis holds a hidden opportunity. Every empty space is fertile ground for something better. Every symbolic death is, at the same time, the birth of a new life. When you truly grasp these 4 phases, you'll never look at your transitions the same way again. Instead of seeing problems or obstacles, you'll start to see precious milestones, key moments that shape the real journey of your soul. You might be wondering right now, what could some ancient wisdom like the Tibetan Book of the Dead possibly have in common with modern psychology? At first glance, they might seem worlds apart, the ancient and the contemporary, the spiritual and the scientific. But if you dig a little deeper, it becomes pretty clear. Both are exploring the same mysterious landscapes of the human mind, just traveling different roads to get there. Let's start with near-death experiences, or NDEs. People who've been through them often describe profound visions, an overwhelming light, a full life review, a powerful sense of oneness with everything around them. These jaw-dropping accounts, deeply studied by modern science, line up eerily well with what the Bardo Thodol has been describing for centuries. These liminal states, those strange in-between moments when consciousness feels suspended between life and death, are modern-day bardos. They're not just isolated, weird experiences, they're deep, revealing encounters that totally flip a person's perspective on life, impermanence, and maybe most importantly, what it really means to live. So, why does that happen? Well, the answer might lie in Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. Jung believed we all share a deep pool of symbols, images, and archetypes, a sort of mental ocean that connects all of humanity. And when we go through critical moments, our own personal bardos, these archetypes get activated, bringing up powerful messages from deep inside us. If we can understand them, they can heal old wounds and steer us toward personal growth. The symbols described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, like the peaceful and wrathful deities, aren't just wild hallucinations. They're archetypal representations of what's happening inside us. Those strange, luminous, or even terrifying figures are actually parts of our own psyche, hidden wisdom, deep fears, inner power that need to be acknowledged and integrated. If we're going to evolve, transpersonal psychology, a newer branch that blends modern psychology with practical spirituality, dives headfirst into these in-between mental territories. It tries to understand how altered states of consciousness, through meditation, mystical experiences, near-death encounters, and deep life transitions, can lead to profound emotional healing and lasting personal transformation. And it's not just theory. Modern practices like somatic therapy, conscious breathing, and mindfulness also tap into the transformative power of these liminal states. When you're going through a major life shift, a brutal breakup, a deep existential crisis, a massive career change, these tools can help you navigate your everyday bardos with a whole lot more clarity and peace. So what does all this mean for you, practically speaking? It means every crisis is actually a hidden opportunity. Every moment of uncertainty or existential emptiness is really an invitation to dive deeper into yourself, to reconnect with forgotten parts, heal old wounds, and awaken potentials you didn't even know you had. Next time you find yourself standing at the edge of a big life transition, ask yourself, What archetype is waking up inside me right now? What messages is my unconscious mind trying to send me? Recognizing that is the first step to turning any bardo into a powerful gateway for growth and transformation. Maybe you're thinking right now, okay, I get the power of transitions, but how do I actually move through them with more awareness, balance, and clarity? Good news, there are some practical tools, deeply spiritual and backed by modern science, that can help you navigate your everyday bardos with a lot more wisdom and calm. Today, I want to share a few essential practices with you. They're simple, but seriously transformative. And the best part, you can start using them right away. One of the biggest sources of suffering during any bardo is resisting change. The more you try to hold on, the more painful it is to let go. Meditation on impermanence is a powerful practice that teaches your mind to let go gracefully, recognizing that everything is temporary. Close your eyes for a second. Picture something or someone you love deeply. Feel all that tenderness, that precious connection. Now, take a deep breath, and with every exhale, imagine that image gently dissolving. You're not rejecting it. You're simply honoring the truth that everything flows, everything fades. This exercise doesn't make you love any less. In fact, it deepens your appreciation, knowing that things are precious because they don't last forever. Practicing this daily builds emotional resilience. It shows you that you can love fiercely, without fear, and when it's time to let go, you'll be ready to do it with grace and peace. Another beautiful practice is Tonglen, which literally means giving and receiving. It's a traditional Tibetan technique that's been adapted for dealing with everyday stress and emotional pain. Picture a moment when you're feeling hurt, anxious, or overwhelmed. As you inhale, imagine breathing in all that pain. I know, sounds backwards, right? But that's the magic of Tonglen. You fully accept the suffering without fighting it. Now, as you exhale, visualize yourself sending out healing, comfort, and relief, not just to yourself, but to everyone who's struggling in the same way. This practice doesn't just soften your emotional resistance, the real root of suffering. It also strengthens your empathy and connection with others. It's a powerful reminder that you're not alone in your struggles. Right this second, thousands of people are fighting similar battles. By transforming your own pain into active compassion, you gain clarity and strength to move through any bardo life throws your way. Sometimes, in the thick of a crisis, all you need is a tiny anchor, a simple reminder that brings you back to the present moment. And that's where modern mantras come in. Try repeating short phrases like, "This too shall pass. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I trust the flow of life." These little reminders, repeated throughout the day, pack real power. They interrupt negative mental loops and literally create new neural pathways in your brain, something modern neuroscience fully backs up. By practicing these simple mantras, you build a mental safe space that helps you stay grounded even during emotional storms. Journaling, writing to transform. Finally, one of the most accessible and deeply healing tools out there, journaling. Writing about your bardos, your transitions, isn't just a creative outlet, it's a proven therapeutic practice. Take a few minutes each day to write down what's happening in your life. Don't filter yourself. Ask simple but powerful questions like, what's dying in me right now? What's being born? Let your answers flow without judgment. This deceptively simple practice brings hidden insights up to the surface, things that usually stay buried under repetitive thoughts. Over time, journaling helps you spot behavioral patterns, limiting beliefs, and real opportunities for growth. Bringing it all together, integrating these practices into daily life. These four tools, meditation on impermanence, Tonglen, modern mantras, and journaling, aren't just isolated techniques. They're pieces of a bigger, integrated approach to handling your everyday transitions. The more you use them, the more you'll notice a steady, powerful shift. Your bardos will stop feeling like threats and start becoming powerful allies on your journey of self-discovery. Look, these practices won't magically erase your challenges or keep crises from happening, but they'll give you something even better, the inner strength to walk through anything with wisdom, balance, and a calm, quiet courage. So, ask yourself right now, which of these practices could you start using today? Which one really speaks to your soul? Just remember, real transformation doesn't come from giant, dramatic changes. It comes from small, consistent actions you take every single day. Pick one of these tools, stick with it for a week, pay close attention to the shifts happening inside you. You'll see, each bardo will start feeling lighter, clearer, and way more meaningful, because in the end, the real secret to moving through the bardos isn't trying to avoid them, it's using them as powerful gateways for ongoing awakening. As uncomfortable as it might be to think about, there's one undeniable truth that binds us all together. Every single one of us, no exceptions, will one day cross the ultimate and most final bardo, the bardo of physical death. Have you ever really stopped to think about how you approach that reality? Most people don't. They'd rather shove it aside, living as if they'll somehow escape it, pretending they've got forever. But what if you chose to face it head-on? How might that change not just your relationship with death, but even, more importantly, the way you live right now? The Tibetans believe that deeply understanding death is actually one of the most powerful ways to fully appreciate life. For them, preparing to die well is absolutely essential to living well. They even practice specific techniques to consciously and peacefully navigate that final bardo. One of those practices is called Phowa, also known as conscious transference. Phowa is a Tibetan technique where you train your mind while you're still alive to consciously guide your awareness at the moment of death. The idea is beautifully simple yet profound. You practice letting go of the material world with ease, and you direct your consciousness toward a higher state of clarity and peace. But you might be wondering, what's the point of that for everyday life? Well, here's the surprising truth. Once you lose your fear of death, you start living with way more intensity, freedom, and heart. The grip of clinging to temporary things begins to loosen naturally. The anxiety about the future fades. The regrets about the past lose their sting. You begin to see that every moment, every interaction, every breath is precious, precisely because it won't last forever. So now, be honest with yourself. What would your life look like if you lived every day fully aware of impermanence, completely at peace with the inevitability of that final bardo? How would it change your relationships, your choices, your work, your spirituality? Here's the thing, that last bardo doesn't have to be terrifying. It can be liberating. It can be an invitation to live without illusions, without regrets, to live wide awake in every moment. When you integrate this deep wisdom into your everyday life, you realize something truly life-changing. Preparing for death is actually the deepest way to prepare for an extraordinary life. Accepting the final bardo isn't about giving up or giving in. It's about seeing life for what it really is. In all its raw, fleeting beauty, it's about living with the fierce courage of someone who knows that death isn't the end. It's just another door, another portal, opening up into new mysteries and new possibilities. Let that truth sink in right now. Feel how a simple shift in perspective can light a fire inside you, giving you fresh courage, sharper clarity, and a deeper sense of purpose. Every single moment is priceless precisely because it's not going to last. So, when the time comes, how do you want to cross your final bardo, clutching and afraid, or open and courageous, fighting it, or embracing it with full-hearted acceptance? That's the power of the great preparation. And it doesn't start someday. It starts right now, in the way you live this very moment. You've already crossed countless bardos in your life. Maybe you're living through one right now, a small or major cycle ending, making way for something new and unknown. But the big question is, are you aware of it? Recognizing that life itself is a constant bardo changes everything. You stop fighting the natural flow of things, you stop fearing the unknown, and you start seeing every crisis as a profound invitation to be reborn. Every ending carries a silent promise. Something new and powerful is taking shape. You can't stop transitions from happening, but you can choose how you move through them. And that, right there, is where your true power lies. So ask yourself honestly, how have you been moving through your bardo so far? Have you let fear and resistance run the show? Have you been running away, or have you been facing these moments with courage and openness to transformation? Right now is the perfect time to choose a new path, consciously. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose courage over fear. Choose rebirth over resistance. The decision's completely in your hands. And you can start right now. Always remember this. The Tibetan Book of the Dead isn't just a guide for dying well. It's a powerful guide for living fully. Every crisis, every change, every bardo is another chance to uncover who you really are, another chance to embody the most authentic, powerful version of yourself. Life at its core is made of transitions. And when you really get that, you start living with way more wisdom, way more lightness, and way more intensity. You begin to see every challenge as a teacher, every loss as a lesson, every emptiness as fertile ground for extraordinary rebirth. Now's the time for action. Embrace your bardos consciously. Welcome the inevitable changes, and allow yourself to keep evolving again and again. That's the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. Every time you move through a bardo with clarity and courage, you're building a richer, deeper, more meaningful life. Never forget this. You're not here just to survive your transitions. You're here to keep being reborn through them. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches us that living is dying and being reborn endlessly every single day. And are you ready to be reborn right now? If this video resonated with you and helped expand your view of life's big transitions, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming content. Share this video with your friends and family, especially with those going through big changes and who might need to hear this message today. And of course, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us about a bardo you've recently crossed or one you're in the middle of right now. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.